So I am doing my DNFs and low rated. So the first one I need to remember, because I don't have the book here, that I DNF'd pretty quickly. I was not feeling it. Was 9-month Contract by Amy Dawes. This is the Mountain Men Maker, book number 1. I thought the cover was cute, even though, as I stated before, I'm not a huge fan of cartoon covers, but I thought it looked kind of cute just based on the cover. But I wasn't feeling this. And it was funny because I did see some people talk about this. Like, there was this person who a year ago had posted their review. And I'd have to say, I do agree with this person, you know, that they had said, like, their reasonings why they end up deciding against getting into this book. She obviously, she put it in a shelf where she says decided against, and her reasonings of why she didn't want to read the book. But she didn't give it a star rating, so I'm good for that. Glad for that. And I agree with her. So we have this story here where there's these guys who are farmers, and the one guy is looking for basically a surrogate who will get pregnant with his kid and all that stuff. And I'd say the problem I had with it is when I delved into it, you end up having like multiple POVs. Like, the one POV is him, the character, the male character. What's his name again? What is his name again? What is your name, dude? Well, her name is Trista. Yeah, her name is Trista. I don't know what his name was, but basically, she was basically going to be like the incubator, but she's using her own, like, not the womb, that's the issue. She's using her own egg, and I'm like, when you do surrogacy, you're not using your own egg. You're not supposed to. It's supposed to be one woman's egg, this person's sperm, and you're just the oven. That's basically what it is. You're just basically the oven. You're the one that's carrying the baby and all that stuff. So that's what surrogacy is supposed to do, which I'm not a huge fan of personally, because there's so many children out there in the world that need to be adopted that are in the foster care system. And I almost find it very selfish to, and I'm not a religious person either, but you're essentially playing God, you know, with using surrogacy and like IVF and all that stuff to create babies. And to me, I'm like, why don't you adopt children that are in the system, you know? Which adoption can be hard and it can be expensive, but so is an IVF and surrogacy. So I will just say, like, I don't like the fact that she's using her own egg to, you know, for the surrogacy. I don't like it, because you're essentially giving up your own child for, you know, this farmer. So ultimately I was like, I don't feel morally right about that. And I was like, no. And so that's why this other person basically said the same thing, where they were like, moved to read, to decided against due to personal ethics. I tried to read this to see if I could change my mind, but it's so gross and gave me major ick. Surrogacy romance is not for me. Reasons: the ethics of an at-home insemination and a traditional surrogate or gestational carrier is too morally complex to deal with in a rom-com. I could agree with her. Honestly, this blurb gave me major ick. Also, the marketing on Insta is calling it breeding kink. Like, how is this sensitive to the surrogacy process? You know? Yeah, I agree with her. I'll show you the review. But I'd have to agree with her. It's kind of a hard thing. It has to be done in a way to where, I don't know, it just, to me, it's kind of an iffy thing. It's really iffy to do it as like a romantic comedy. So I got about a few chapters in and I was just not feeling it. And then also there's like a third POV. It was like his niece who was searching for a surrogate for him, and it had her POV too. And I'm like, why is her POV in here too? I don't care. You know, it should be just mainly just 2 POVs and that's it. The 2 main characters. And so for me, I was just like, I'm not feeling this. I'm just not feeling this at all. So I ended up like DNFing that, and I was just like, not for me. I don't think I want to delve into any more surrogacy type of romances. I like accidental pregnancy. That's what I like. I like accidental pregnancy. Or, yeah, I like those, you know. I'm not into like secret baby or secret child, but I love accidental pregnancies. And then like the guy's like all in, he's like, yes, you know, he's like, I want to be a dad kind of thing. Those are sweet. I like those, you know, where he's like, I'm gonna be a dad kind of thing. Those are good. I like those are cute. But this here I was like, I'm not really feeling it, and I don't morally agree, you know, when it comes to this, because like I said, she's using her own egg. And you know, there's men out there who, you know, they go and they give up their sperm, and it's like, how many kids out there do you have that, you know, all came from your sperm, you know? And it only like, after a while, the sperm kind of degrades, and then you kind of have to keep doing injections, you know, at this place to keep your semen going, you know. And it's like, how many fucking kids you want to have, you know? So I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of that type of stuff myself. I would never use that, you know, personally. But yeah, I'm not a fan of it, and I was just like, no, I can't, you know, I can't get into this book. So next book, I got about 50% in, and I was like, I'm done. To me, I feel like this author very much has like an agenda she wants to say in her books, and she has it to where the 2 books that I try to get into with her, they very much like don't match the theme of the covers, where these covers are very much like they seem more happy. You know, like when you look at a cartoon cover, it's supposed to be more of like a romantic comedy. And she even has it on her website, like these books here, has it on her website that these books are supposed to be romantic comedies. And I just don't see the humor in either one of these stories. This one here has it to where the female's backstory is her mother was a drug addict. That to me isn't humor. Her mother was a drug addict. And so the poor girl ended up getting put in foster care when she was like 5. And so she barely has any memories of her own mother. She remembers like living in a car with her and her mom being like addicted to drugs. And that to me is like very sad. It's just very sad to me. And I'm just like, this is depressing. This is supposed to be like a romantic comedy. This isn't funny at all. And I felt like she was labeling certain people in here. Like I very much felt like Asa was very much a stereotype, you know, and his family was very much a stereotype because he has blue hair and he's bisexual, and his family are like Christians and they don't accept him. And so they basically like have cut him off. And I'm like, that's such a stereotype to, oh, because he's bisexual, he doesn't have family who are supportive of him. It was such a stereotype to me, and I just really disliked that aspect to the story. And like I said, it just made it even more depressing because I'm like, she's got a depressing backstory, and now he has a depressing backstory to where he's not accepted by his family. you know? And it's like, look, this book came out in 2023. There are so many people who accept somebody who's gay, straight, you know, bisexual, lesbian, whatever. There's so many people out there who accept you for who you are. It doesn't matter your sexuality. So I really disliked where the author was going with this. Wasn't a fan. Was not a fan of it. And I was just like, you know what? I can't continue. And I didn't feel the relationship between them two. They were too hostile toward each other that I really was like, I wasn't feeling the turnaround. Like, you know, and I'm like, how are we going to get these characters to like each other enough to where they want to do the horizontal hustle? I wasn't feeling it with this. I really tried to give this author a chance. That's why I said I got about 50% in of listening to the audiobook before I finally gave up on it. And I was just like, no, I'm done. I'm done. And then I tried getting into this other book, which was the same author, because I liked the cover and I thought it was cute and I thought it'd be another one like a romantic comedy. No. Again, this author's books are being mislabeled. And they're more darker in tone than what's portrayed on the cover. This one here has it to where this heroine is heckling the baseball player. She's drunk. So not only does it show that she's immature, that she's going to get drunk at a baseball game, that's public. A lot of people see this stuff. And you're heckling this poor baseball player, and came up with the dumbest, like, heckle. Like, really did. Came up with, like, the dumbest heckle. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, right here. She goes, "Yo, Chris," she said, clinging to the netting in front of her. "Your name should be Christopher Robin because you're hitting like poo." That's an insult? Really? Really? That's an insult? Okay. So yeah, that to me was like lame. Where I'm like, author, did you really come up with that? Did you really come up with that type of, that's what you think is a heckle? And then she has the hero get upset to where he's almost crying on television because she called him Christopher Robin, and it was reminding him of his deceased brother, because his deceased brother used to call him Christopher Robin because his name's Chris. And that's what got him upset. Not that she was heckling him, it's because she reminded him of his deceased brother, and he was still like grieving his brother. And so afterwards, because it's shown where he looks like he's getting misty-eyed and like about to tear up, it shows on camera. So not only did she embarrass him in front of national television, but also afterwards, people like, you know, they'll have people who talk about games and all that stuff, what happened in the game and things like that. And people are making fun of this man, this grown man who got upset because her stupid drunk ass had to go and heckle him. And I was like, and I'm supposed to like root for the heroine? Fuck that. So I believe I ended up getting about 4 chapters in before I DNF'd it. And I think I might have saved a review. I'm not sure if I did. I thought I screenshotted a review of one person who gave it like 1 star. Let me see if I can find it. No, it was somebody else. That was for the other book. I was going to review this other book, but I forget it. I'm not going to do it. But one person had gave her 4th book that she had did a 1 star and said how they didn't like it. And she had like, the woman had a lot of likes. She had like 176 likes on her comment. So I'm like, there's clearly like a lot of people who really just dislike the book. And personally, I just don't think this author is a really good author. I don't think she's a good writer, honestly. I think she's been given too many chances in trad publishing, that I just don't think she's good enough. And she really, honestly, doesn't have a lot of people following her on social media. I think she only had like 15,000, and that to me is like a small number when it comes to like having followers. You're hoping that those 15,000 bought your book, you know? And I don't think 15,000 is like personally a lot of like, you know, to buy. There's like people who buy, who will get like millions of copies sold, you know? 15,000 is, to me, I feel like a very low number, especially when you're supposed to be trad published, you know? You'd think that you would be get higher numbers, you know? And like I said, not everybody's going to also buy. Just because she's got 15,000 followers doesn't mean that every 15,000 people bought that book. She might have had 100 sales or maybe 1,000 sales, you know, for that book. And that to me is like very low, you know? So yeah, I wasn't feeling that one. And then I read one person's review where they said like majority of the book, this woman was catfishing the guy. And so I'm like, I don't like that, where the majority of the book she's lying to the man. First of all, you start off the relationship on a lie. And that to me is like not good from the start, you know, basing a relationship off of a lie. And then like, you know, she finally tells the truth, or he ends up discovering it. And then that's what causes like the conflict. And I'm just like, no, I'm not feeling this. So yeah, I ended up just DNFing it after like the 4th chapter, because I'm like, she's doing like the same thing as she did in the other book, where it's like she's giving you these sad backstories, and I'm just like, oh no, you know. So I was like, no. And then this one here, I went into it and I gave it like gave the prologue a chance. I listened to the prologue and I was like, you know what? I'm not really feeling this book. And then I go on to the Goodreads reviews, and there was a lot of 1 stars. There was a lot of people who gave the book 1 star or 2 star, and they really just weren't a fan of it. And this is more like fantasy, like I'd say maybe like romantasy, because I guess the heroine falls for her boss. And yeah, her name's Evie. And so she needs to get a job, and so she ends up getting hired by this guy who's called the villain. And I think his name was like Tristan or something. I think his name might be Tristan. I think I because I was skimming the book, I think that's what it is. But she calls him the villain in here. And that's what the title is. Like, whenever it goes to his chapter, it's always the villain. Yeah, his name's Tristan. Yeah, I'm pretty sure his name's Tristan. But yeah, I got into like the prologue, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not feeling this. And I ended up just DNFing it. And I'm like, I don't know, maybe one day I'll go back to it and try to, you know, maybe I can, you know, get into it again later on. But I just decided, you know, I'm just going to go and just donate it. Maybe one day if I want to get back into it, I can always like download it from, you know, Kindle and just read the ebook or something like that. See if that'll do the trick. I don't know. But anyways, I'm currently reading this book here, and I'm contemplating whether or not I want to DNF it, or if I want to try to keep giving it a chance. Because right now it's very slow. It's very slow going, and I'm not sure if I want to keep continuing. I think I'm going to give it a little bit more. If I can't get into it like within like 30% or 40% of the book, because I'm like 26% into the book, and it's really slow. It's okay so far, but I really wish it was better. So the book is called The Wastelander. It's by E.S. Luck. And I really wanted it to be very much like, I like Claire Kent, her Kindle series and all the stuff that she has with it. I like that series a lot, and I really want other books to be sort of like similar in that vein, you know, of like finding love even in like a post-apocalyptic time, or like dystopian and all that stuff. You find like somebody that you can trust and love. So right now it's okay. So we have the heroine where she originally was born and raised in this area which is like all closed off, and so it's like very much like a town that boarded themselves up, and they had like electricity and different things like that, and everyone on the outside of this town they're called wastelanders, and they basically were like called like all these bad names, and I'd say they were the town she lived in, and the history books that they were told to read to the kids, I guess were sort of true, because wastelanders some of them are cannibals, you know, like they will eat other people, but some of them aren't. So she's basically got kicked out of like this town because it got overtaken, and so her and her friend end up running away from the town, and they're now in the wasteland area, which is all fucked up, and they end up coming across these her and her friend end up coming across these cannibals, and they're trying to eat them, obviously. And so this one guy ends up saving her, the heroine. I can't even remember her name. Now I can't even remember her name. But he ends up saving her, and he brings her back to, his name's John. He ends up bringing her back to Claire. That's her name, Claire. John brings Claire back to his area where he lives. And so now she's like, you know, having to realize that, wow, not all of these wastelanders are horrible monsters, you know. This guy saved her from these cannibals, and his sister, which is not like his biological sister, but like he grew up with her, Kimmy, and Kimmy befriends Claire, and so now they're kind of like trying to teach her like how to survive in the, you know, out in the wild and all that stuff, survive out there, and how to hunt and different things like that, you know, how to skin a rabbit and all that stuff. So basically teaching you farm stuff, you know, out in like the middle of nowhere. How do you survive? You know, you got to obviously kill meat, you know, kill animals and all that stuff in order to survive. So that's basically what the guy is trying to teach her, John. And she first like just had this real attitude, and I'm just a bit annoyed with her, because I'm like, girl, I know that you were raised in this facility, you know, in this town where they basically like gaslit you into believing that all the people on the outside are just these horrible people. So I understand that, you know, that you were told a lot of lies, but not all of it's lies, you know, not all of it was, you know. And it's like, why don't you, instead of have a better attitude of like, you know, this guy ended up saving you, you know, if he wanted to kill you, he would have killed you by now, you know. And so it's like, just accept the fact that, learn to adapt, you know, accept the fact that you're not in Kansas anymore, Dorothy. So you need to go and learn to adapt to your surroundings, you know. Like, whatever my surroundings are, I have to learn to adapt. You know, I've always been that way. I've always tried to learn to adapt to what's given to me and what I have. You know, what I have to work with. You know, that's basically what it is. And so she got sick when she was watching him like skin a rabbit, and I'm like, oh, girl, you gotta buck up. You gotta buck up, because that's pretty much how it goes. You know, either you gotta learn to plant some vegetables and eat vegetables, you know, and just become a vegetarian at that point, or you gotta kill an animal, and you gotta kill, you know, unfortunately kill it and skin it and eat the meat, you know. that's pretty much how it goes with the circle of life. I mean, you know, lions aren't vegetarians. You know, they hunt down the gazelle and kill it, you know? They hunt down the, you know, they hunt down the coyote and eat it, you know? The only thing they're not probably going to be able to get is a cheetah. Those things are freaking fast. Cheetahs are really fast. So, yeah, lions may not be able to take down a cheetah. Maybe not if the cheetah maybe is taking a nap or something. But yeah, it's like, that's nature, you know? You gotta learn to adapt what you got, you know? So I just felt like she kind of like had a bit of an attitude, and I was like, girl, he's trying to teach you how to survive, and you're coughing up this attitude with him, you know? And so right now it's kind of, like I said, it's very slow going. And so I'm at the point where I'm like, do I want to continue with this, or do I want to DNF it? I guess you'll find out next month, you know, whether or not I continued with it, or if I DNF'd it, or what I thought about it. But right now I'm kind of like reading that, and I'm like, I'm contemplating whether or not I want to continue on and hope it like picks up and gets better, or if it's or if it doesn't, and I gotta go and DNF it and move on to something else. But yeah, that's pretty much what I've read in the month of July, of stuff that I just couldn't get into, and I just wasn't feeling it. Like I said, I will never pick up another book by that author again, you know, Alicia Thompson, since, you know, I don't like her writing, and kind of go from there. And yeah, it's pretty much why I'm sticking to not picking up any more trad published books, like no more new ones, you know, no new trad published books, not for a while. Not for a long time, because I have not been enjoying any of them. There's a lot of books that I ended up like this month trying to get into, and I end up DNFing it and just like, no, you know, there's like how many books that I've gone and I'm like, no, I'm just going to donate them. Or what I do is like, I'll take them over to this other place at my mall, and they'll buy the books, and I mean, you may not get a lot for them, but you still get some cash back. So you get some money for them. So that's pretty much what I'm probably going to do, and go from there. But yeah, I'm going to stick to my guns, and no purchasing of any physical books, especially when, you know, trad publishing. And when it comes to like my indie books, I'll continue to read my indies. And if, you know, there's a book that I come across where I'm like, ooh, I really like that one. Like, you know, there was one I read this month that is, I gave it 4 stars. And I really liked it. I might bump it up to 5 later on. But I gave it 4 stars, and I really liked it because it's from an author that I read. And I bought that book, you know, this month. But I'm trying to stick to just indie books that I've read and I definitely would reread again. Those are the ones I pick up. It helps me, you know, save some money from buying books and stuff like that. So that's basically what I'm trying to do, is that, and go from there. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this video here. Did you have any books this month that you were not a fan of, that you ended up like DNFing or giving a low rating to? Let me know down below what you read or, you know, DNF'd down in the comment section. But yeah, that's it for this here. Have yourself a good day. Take care of yourselves, be kind to each other, and I'll see you all on the next video. All right, bye.